welcome everyone to the sixth event of the Solana Wormhole Hackathon. We have a really exciting panel today revolving around NFTs, the past, future, and present. And we have a handful of individuals that are thought leaders within the space for this specific topic. And so we have Jordan, who is the founder of Meme. We have Roneil, who is the founder of Audius. We have Kyle, who's a managing partner at Multicoin Capital. And then we have Anatoly, as usual, who is the co-founder of Solana. And so this is gonna be about a 45-minute discussion. Any questions you have during the panel, just drop it in the questions tab we have on the right-hand side. And we'll take the last 10, 15 minutes and the speakers will take turns answering the questions appropriately. And then we have the chat channel, which is just kind of a free-for-all. I see several folks already making use of that. Just feel free to use that during the chat for just overall discussion. And I think with that, Toly, I'll let you take it away. Have fun, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Austin. Really good to have you guys here. I think, as usual, I'm in San Francisco with 2 kids under 5. Let's jump into all their meetings. I'd love for you guys to kind of give like a little deeper kind of dive into your project, especially like Meme and Audius, which I'm super excited about. Like Audius just announced integrating with Solana.
Yeah, Jordan, you want to go first, or I'm happy to start?
Well, you had the big news today, so go ahead.
All right. So yeah, just the super quick high levels. Audius is a decentralized audio hosting and streaming protocol. We help artists connect directly with fans and distribute any music they want in a kind of a community first and community owned way. Yeah, so we launched Audius about a year ago now, September 2019. Today, we actually just crossed 1 million monthly users, which is pretty cool. So also pretty cool was, to help us scale into this next chapter. We announced this morning that we're migrating like a large piece of the Audius system to Solana. So pretty excited about that too. We've been hitting, I don't know if any of you all have been using Audius. You may have been hitting some of the issues over the weekend from POA network being backed up. So I have a lot of thoughts on, sort of why this made sense, all that good stuff. But yeah, I mean, ultimately for us, we are a protocol that serves our users who are primarily artists and listeners. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm super excited and sorry to like put the spotlight on Roneil, but that was pretty big news for us. Jordan, I'd love to hear your like kind of how you got into crypto and like where Meme came from.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Happy to be here. So I'm a product guy, several startups with exits. Been building full time on Ethereum since 2017, so about 3 years. And I'm currently at Consensys, actually. It's been the last 1.5 years at Consensys, building products in DeFi. And then a couple of months ago, this crazy train started rolling called Meme. It was an interesting origin story. We can dive in if we want, but really it started from a satirical tweet that I had posted, and then that kind of turned into a community that just kind of took off and ran with this concept. So it's community first, it's meme first. It's just several hours within the start of this crazy community. A few of us said, hey, let's actually build something rather than just being a silly meme token. Let's go build a product. If we're the Dogecoin of DeFi, let's actually be a Lego brick in composability terms. Let's go actually build something. So within 10 days of like inception of this community and token distribution, we launched our first product on mainnet. And it was really just like an experimentation. What happens if you mash up like the best of DeFi and the best of NFTs, jam them together? What do you get? So we kind of pioneered this concept of NFT mining, or NFT proof of work, NFT farming, where you lock up assets instead of staking to earn governance tokens, you're staking to earn these exclusive limited edition NFTs. And it kind of took the place by storm. I think it's at least partially responsible for this DeFi times NFT kind of bump that we've seen in the last couple of months. But yeah, it's been a couple of months now, and it's taken up more and more of my time. And it's kind of turning into this platform where we're able to, with like the mechanics of DeFi, we're able to engage the user rather than just an NFT artist selling to a few whales, right? They can engage the community. The users can come to our site and really participate in the staking process and this minting process, where they're really connected to the audience, or sorry, the audience is connected to the artist. And we're kind of uncovering some of these cool kind of new interactions between like Web3 primitives and NFT art. And we're kind of seeing this platform being built, and we're right in the middle of trying to figure out what's next for the project. And we're having a lot of fun doing it.
That's awesome. I mean, like, I love how the space is transforming, like the world. I think like, Consensys and like layer 1, layer 2 stuff, those are implementation details. I think like the really powerful thing is this idea that humans now have like access to cryptography, and they can now like do all of these things just with cryptography alone. Like this idea that I have a secret that I can sign with, I think is incredibly transformative, because like from my vantage point, NFTs are like implementation of copyright law in a sense, or like a lot of the ways that we deal with art and ownership of it, and like monetizing it and giving access of it to like humans, right? It can be all self-contained and with cryptography. It's super cool, like super cool to see these like experiments and like the awesome progress like folks like Roneil have done, and like actually getting users to use this stuff, right? Which is hard. Crypto is freaking hard to get people to use. Kyle is like one of our investors. He's one of our investors in Audius. I don't know if he's an investor in Meme or not, right? But he's been like our like go to like help us with any problem and like pound the table for Solana. And kind of an awesome, like part of the team effectively. So it's awesome to have him here. I'd love your take on the NFT space.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of really interesting things to do with NFTs. The thing that I'm like really excited about is to figure out like, how do you use it to make things more engaging? Like there's some fundamental value of scarcity. And like enabling creators to use that scarcity to engage their like customer base or readership base or listener base or whatever, like fundamentally makes sense. You already have lots of inklings of this in music specifically, like all the major artists have like fan clubs and stuff. My sense is they are all executed generally pretty poorly, but like they like try and do like limited edition things and stuff like that. If you can introduce an NFT into that kind of like a workflow, I feel like there's something there. And then if you can embed that like scarcity, not just in like I email you something, an email newsletter, but like into some piece of regular software that the users use on some recurring basis, like that's very interesting. Like one of the like common ways to think about applications is like, is this application single player or multiplayer? And like Spotify and Apple Music have tried to make it multiplayer over the last like decade. Like Apple did Ping, and Spotify did like they did first like spam your feed with like what your friends are listening to. And it turns out they just did a really crappy job at making it multiplayer. But like I feel like NFTs might be like the right lens to make these things multiplayer. And if that theory is correct for music, I suspect you'll be able to replicate similar types of ideas to other content mediums as well.
I don't know if anyone has like a response to that, but like I like used to make really terrible music in college.
When's it dropping on Audius?
Yeah, dear God. but I used
these Audius account.
It was like literally I was trying to make, it's called like industrial noise, right? Like, so it was a bad choice to mimic and then a bad implementation of that. But the like the cool thing was that I was like using these tracker software and just pulling MP3s from the internet of random stuff and plugging it together in a sequencer. And like, that's like illegal and impossible to do, right? Like that's absurd to me that we don't have like software systems that would allow like content creators to like share this stuff in such a way that somebody like anybody can just kind of remix it and easily like create a new work and post it on the internet and like have all that monetization like flow through like naturally. It's like a dumb billing problem, right? Like we're building billing software, right? Right, like effectively, like it's absurd to me that that's impossible. Like do you guys like in the near term, what do you guys see as like transformative use cases coming out of your work?
Jordan, why don't you go for it?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. We're starting to just kind of scratch the surface of kind of what's possible. I see this NFT art, it's really just a narrow piece within like the whole NFT landscape, but I think it's becoming like this bridge to mass adoption, right? Like I really think NFTs as a general technology, and it probably won't be called that in a couple of years, but just like this provable ownership and provable scarcity of digital content, it's going to be bringing on millions of users from Web 2 to Web 3, whether that's music with Audius or collectibles and art and everything else that we've got up our sleeves here at Meme. It really does a few things, right? It smooths out kind of the user experience, where you, instead of having to jump through all these hoops and participate in some of these kind of what are currently known as like DeFi mechanics of locking up assets and staking tokens and participating in liquidity providing and, you know, all that stuff. It really just makes it super easy. And I think like things like Solana and other like layers on top, like what we're trying to build and what Audius is doing, just makes this whole thing scalable and accessible to a brand new audience. And I think like ownership of digital anything is like we're brand new to this space, right? But you go back to like a fundamental human need to hold something and own something, and he has something I want, so I'm gonna go take that, or I'm jealous because he has that and I don't. Like this comes down to like basic human primal needs of like owning things and being part of like a status symbol, right? I don't mean to dive too deep into that into that, but it's really interesting to think about that this tech now allows us something that almost should have existed the last wave, you know, Web 2. But it's really exciting to kind of put this power in the hands of users, being able to do things that we weren't up until now able to do, and that's almost like even a more fair model for paying artists, community engagement, like we've discussed. It's really powerful tools, and I think we're just starting to uncover some of these things.
Yeah, to kind of add on that, I think it is interesting to think about like what is the definition of an NFT, or like what is your definition? Because I think a lot of folks have a lot of different perspectives on this. I think the angle that like we've seen artists get really excited about, and that at Audius we're really excited about are or I guess there are kind of two angles. Well, one side is sort of these like almost like non-financial style use cases. Think of almost like trophies or like membership in a fan's fan club. Like what if you could earn a token for being like a given artist's #1 fan in a given month, for example. There are like all these different almost like earned assets, if you will, that become like this reflection of what's been done. Or you almost get back to like the concept of trophies in gaming, for example, right? Where the transferability of it is actually, it's like not meant to be transferable, right? Because you can't transfer, like if I'm the biggest user of or listener of so-and-so's music, like that I can't like transfer the fact that I was that to someone else, right? It doesn't really make sense. And then there are the like very financial aspects of it, and where I'm really interested to see folks double down is I don't know if you all saw like RAC's NFT that he sold recently on Super Rare. Like, what a fantastic way to monetize work for an artist, right? But what if you could actually start to tie like further sort of rights or intangibles to the ownership of that NFT? Like, what if you, the owner, were the only person that could listen to it? And then when you transfer the NFT, you transfer that ability to listen to it to someone else, right? What if you could attach a royalty stream to it? Like, there's so many different things that I think like we have yet to explore as a whole community, that like that's where I think this stuff gets really interesting. But what makes me excited is to see kind of this, like, I feel like we're just beginning to scratch the surface, and you know, I think our job as builders in this community is to give artists the tools and see what they come up with doing with them, right? And I think that's what I'm most excited for, is just seeing that like explosion of experimentation, and probably a lot of really novel, like cool ways to share content and monetize content. Yeah, so I guess I almost have started to think about these two lanes like separately. I don't know if you'd even call the like kind of trophy community token management kind of angle like an NFT. I've heard some people call it that. I've heard some people not call it that. And then there's kind of these like actual like financial assets that are, you know, there are a lot of different tracks. Each track is its own unique thing though, and they follow some like schema and characteristics, but then they also might have like other rights attached to them.
This is like, to me, like seems like programmable, like, you know, part of software eating the world story. Like, we're making like programmable copyright mixed with automatic billing like systems, which just sounds really boring, right? Incredibly boring, but I think the implications are awesome. I think like memes in themselves have been proven to be extremely powerful, especially in the space. But I don't know, if you go back to like in history and time, like I feel like the Soviet Union was brought down by satire, right? Like by like the middle class constantly like making fun of the government, and there were a ton of memes that were just pretty viral on the absurdity of like life there. Do you like? Do you think that like that's something that could kind of seep into crypto, or is it always going to be kind of like speculative? Like, is it going to be more than just the kind of the value of it, like ownership, more than financial to it?
I think so, at least. Yeah. I think that's what makes art like so interesting, right? Is the cultural impact of it, and even like the way that art is sold and transferred, for example, also has cultural impact to it, right? Even if you think about like in traditional art land, the importance of curation and curators in creating value in art, I think is, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think it's actually like, I hope we don't all lose sight of the fact that like the reason this stuff is cool is because when we look at it or when we hear it, it like makes us feel something, right? That's like the point. Not to like have 15 layers of you know, financial indirection. You know, I don't want like a CDO of like, you know, NFTs that are generating revenue in the future or whatever, right? Like that's, I think if we try to reduce this to like a purely financial thing, we're just gonna miss what's most interesting about it, you know. And don't get me wrong, all that stuff is cool, but like that's not the point, right? That's like the icing on the cake. That's not the cake, you know.
Yeah, I think we're seeing it at Meme, right? Even with people that don't know exactly what the mechanics are behind staking, and maybe I've been as a user, I'm a collector of art. My favorite artist launches off the Meme platform, and I don't know what staking is. I don't know what an LP token is, but I need to get that art. It's exclusive to the platform. So they're like buying into the idea, the meme, so to speak, before they even kind of get the value. And I mean, that's what crypto is at its at its early stages, right? Bitcoin is digital gold, Ethereum is the world computer, like all these things. It doesn't make perfect sense, right? If you try to pick it apart, but it's really just a short phrase that gets people excited about the vision. On the meme side as well, like we're having artists that are creating individual pieces, individual NFTs and works that they could probably go sell for a few ETH each directly, if not more, tens of thousands of dollars, and sell directly to whales. But they're kind of taking a risk here and taking a step of faith that, like, you know, I think you're onto something here with this level of community engagement that I wouldn't get anywhere else. So I'm willing to put some art in a staking pool and benefit from the long tail, benefit from the indirect value of community engagement, generating hundreds of new fans, and then go sell on an auction where you might recoup some of that money. So I think people are buying in, and we're seeing that with the users. We have an interesting mix of like DeFi degens that want to capture the alpha, right? They're going to go farm this NFT and then go sell it on OpenSea. And that's great. And the returns are actually really good. And then you have people that are like, wow, I'm an NFT guy. I'm experimenting with DeFi the first time. We're really seeing some interesting things like at this crossroads. But it all comes down to this idea, and everyone knows that, like, at the end of the day, the value of provable scarcity. And I have something that, and there is still some kind of warm and fuzzy. We are seeing some people that for the first time, a meme NFT is the first NFT that they've ever owned. And it's really exciting to talk to somebody like that, to talk to our users where this is the first time there's an NFT in their wallet, and they get it and they're excited, and they go and they start buying some of their favorite artists, and they're exploring the rest of the art space. Then they're excited about this tech that could be done on other forms of media and getting into Audius and things like that. It's really a cool community to be a part of, especially coming from like a Ethereum DeFi product builder space to get involved in this NFT and more broadly like this art community. It's really refreshing.
I really like that perspective. And even on the financial side, I think it's almost that stuff will happen. But what's cool about that happening is that it's replicating the real world, but in a kind of a flat, transparent way. That like all those like weird credit like swaps exist from movies and large music productions, but they're inaccessible to everybody else that's not like on the inside. But like as soon as those protocols are available, I think like anybody can use it. This is like a question for Kyle. Like, do you guys can you guys like value memes yet? Like, is like is this like brand valuation, or are you guys is that like possible? Like, I mean, it's obviously like has huge impact. Like, look at like Link, right? Like,
yeah. So I think it's an interesting question. So I think like there's companies that have done like the study of like what is the brand worth. Like I think like big audit firms or whatever, and they're like the Coca-Cola brand is worth $50 billion. I've never looked at the methodology of how they calculate that. My assumption is that they look at like the current earnings of the company. They like subtract out like some estimate of like what they think the company would otherwise earn if like the brand was just like neutral and like not significant. And then like the discrepancy is like the value of the brand. I think that's kind of how you like run that math. I'm not sure, but that's my intuition on how you do it. How do you
sugar water, right? Like sugar water is basically free, right? So like Coca-Cola is purely the brand.
Yeah, right. Like that's kind of the argument, right? Maybe you have to net out like some advertising cost or something. So like the calculation's a little more complicated, but something like that effect. So like,
I think it's also like the supply chain and the consistency of the product. There's like I think there's actually more there than people give it credit for. But like, yeah, no, I mean it is fair, and their ability to monetize the brand and the asset I think you're buying when you buy Coca-Cola stock is like that distribution network, right? Not even they could push like so whatever they want through that, but they can distribute Coke like anywhere in the world, right? So I think there's actually like more there than people like to give it credit. But like,
I'm not saying it's equal to zero. It's just like how much of the total $100 billion? I'm making this. I was using $100 billion. How much of that is brand value versus like operational value?
fair. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. So like, how do we tie that to NFTs? My sense is for like the long tail of NFTs, it's like very hard to do. I don't know how you do that. I think you'll start to see, as you start to see creators experiment with NFTs, I bet you there will become some way to come up with some sort of measure of like rabidness of fans. Because like, let's say you have a million fans, and let's say you've got like 1,000 of them are rabid, right? Well, like if you create 500 scarce things, and let's just assume that 100% of the rabid fans want it, so you've got like 2x demand to supply. Like, what does that mean versus, I don't know, like you have 10 million fans, but only 2,000 rabid ones. And like, I don't know, like somehow like come up with some sort of like funny measure of these things. This is pretty loose, but it's kind of the best I can come up with on the spot.
Kind of coming from like a product manager background, one of the things that you ask your users, right, to define product market fit, you ask the question, how disappointed would you be if this product went away tomorrow, right? That's kind of the classic, do people care about this thing? Is there a fit between product and market? I think that's kind of cool too, because it's the brand, it's the product, it's the sizzle, right? It's the warm and fuzzies I get from using it. It's interesting in like this tokenized world, because I asked all the users of our product, and to use our product, you need to be a meme token holder. So it's a little bit skewed, but we're seeing some crazy numbers that with a background in product startup like I never seen. So, you know, it's what we've seen with like 1,000 surveys is that 2/3, so about 65% of our users say they would be extremely disappointed if this product were to go away tomorrow. And usually you're happy with 20-30%, right? In like a Web 2. So it's definitely skewed, because if the product went away, then the token value would decrease. So they're incentivized to answer that way. But it's still really interesting to kind of get that gauge from your audience to say, yeah, we're aligned with what you guys are building. Just kind of an easy kind of shorthand kind of way to figure out, and it is kind of skewed with the tokenization, but a cool way to see, like, are you on track with your user base?
I think like that's kind of brings up a really good point, and I've been thinking about trying to figure out how tokens fit into like just even product development in general. And my kind of feeling is that they're almost self-selective for the users. Like you almost like get a better filter of the users that want yours. Like it's kind of like, you know, like I can be part of a bajillion Facebook groups, a bajillion Reddit groups. I can go to a million websites, but I have to spend money to acquire finite number of tokens. And if I already take this huge step to do this, I've almost already done all the research and self-selected to be part of this community and group. And like, I think the engagement there is just much, much higher, right? Like, it's almost like I'd rather have, 10,000 token holders than 100,000, people in a mailing list, right? So I think that's kind of a super interesting, like, mechanism even, and that is obvious for NFTs as well, because I do have to spend money and I can only have a finite number of them. Versus I can be, a friend of every like artist on, Instagram or something like that.
Yeah, I think any definition of NFT that has made sense to me includes scarcity almost like as a core tenant, right? It's almost like the part of the value comes from the fact that like there aren't a ton of these, or maybe there's even only one of them, right? Like, and I think that is I did not have like a proper appreciation for that before like talking to some of the folks who like, you know, buy these and play around with them. It's like, it's almost a, you know, like partly they want to support the artist is what I often hear, but also it's partly like, you know, there's something really neat about the fact that like I am the only one that has this thing. Right. I mean, it's the same way that when you like buy a painting at your house and like hang it on your wall, like you are the only person who has that unique like sort of thing that was actually like touched and worked on by the artist. And I think what'll be really interesting to see is like, you know, how much does like that being digital and potentially like reproducible change sort of I guess the amount of value that can remain like intrinsic in the asset. Whereas like if I mean, I guess there are forgery issues and stuff with physical art, of course, right? But like if I sell you like a Picasso or something, like you have to like physically see the thing, right? It's almost like the physical incantation of the thing is what is valuable. Whereas in the NFT case, I think we will start to see people like attach different forms of value to these assets, right? Like whether it's actual royalty streams or like, you know, maybe it's you know, you could get a share on any future like resale that happens on it. That would be a way to incentivize like, you know, curator communities to form that can like buy lower priced, you know, art and kind of through their curation increase its value and capture some of that. I think seeing all of that play out is going to be really fascinating. And I imagine it won't look like all that different from the way that normal art in the real world is curated and sold and, you know, resold and managed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's some. I don't know if you guys read stuff about like art auctions, but there's been some crazy, I guess, backstories which seem a lot worse than what happens in crypto. I think a lot like crypto is probably like just we see it more in the open, but it's probably less actually like the bad things that happen in crypto are probably less bad than what actually happens in the real world, which isn't totally observable in a lot of ways.
At least in crypto, we don't have the forgery problem, which in like normal art and fine wine and all that stuff is like massively problematic for them.
We're seeing some interesting fraudulent NFTs that you go on a marketplace, you just upload our art and you're able to trick and fool some people into paying a lot of money, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, certain platforms are open in that anyone can be a creator and you know, tie their and sell their NFT. So working hard with some of these platforms to ensure that, you know, that there's a authentic seal, that we're informing our users to double check the contract address. And it's kind of funny that we're kind of policing fraudulent, and like blockchain was supposed to help us solve this, yet we're taking this approach of like, you know, forget about the frauds, go with us. Or sometimes they'll just make a subtle change on our art, and it's like, well, the blockchain was supposed to solve this, but we're still having to do a lot of like manual work to clear some of the fraud.
Yeah, the really interesting thing is like blockchain guarantees on the back end, like, you know, no double spending and scarcity and those things, but like humans don't interact with cryptographic things on a blockchain. Humans interact with the screen, and like the screen can say anything. And like there's this weird subjective world that lives between what's on the screen and like what's on the blockchain. And it seems like that's kind of the source of the problem here.
Yeah.
I do think like norms will emerge there over time, in the same way that, like, you know, any sort of legitimate contract on Etherscan is verified, and like you can go copy paste that code and like search in GitHub to find it, right? Like I imagine we'll start to, I mean, and there's a whole war that is likely to play out here on like who owns Web3 identity, right? Or if there's even a single owner. But like I imagine there will be the equivalent of like the Twitter verified getting attached to like someone's wallet address or wallet that they're publishing an NFT from, or publishing, you know, work in Audius from, for example, or like any of these things, where you can start to like trust that identity more. Like if you know that, if there's the little check next to like, a Kanye West name or something, you can like be pretty certain that that's actually Kanye West and not just some like random other person. Yeah, I think that's still like one of the bigger unsolved problems in our space is like how do we kind of more scalably handle Sybil resistance issues, right? And yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see. But until we have some norms like that, I think Jordan, what you described is just probably going to keep happening, right? Nothing will stop it, right? Especially when you can look in an NFT and like pull the actual image file and like do whatever you want with it, right? There's not like, or in the case of most of the audio stuff, like the audio file is there, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be, there's more work for all of us to do there, I think, to improve on these types of issues.
Yeah, for like things that you can modify, it's kind of computationally challenging, but I think solvable because you can effectively do like first to file and like do reverse image search or reverse audio search, and like is this actually the first instance of this thing in a blockchain? And that is a hard guarantee. You can't go back. You can't go back in the blocks or slots.
So I wonder if we'll start to have people almost like filing those hashes without the content yet, right? To make sure that like is you can kind of almost like guarantee that like, hey, if like I proved this data, I had this data and it existed like 3 months ago or whatever, only follow like my thing about it if yeah, I think that is super interesting. I guess, yeah, now that patents are first to file, this doesn't matter, but I know this was like a blockchain use case a lot of folks had talked about previously, right? Like there were companies like Stampery and others from, like 4 or 5 years ago that were sort of like timestamping data in mostly in Bitcoin at that time, but like you can just put whatever hash in OP return, right? And be like, okay, we know that this data existed at the time that block was mined because you couldn't have come up with a hash otherwise.
So this was like the first kind of demo that we built on top of proof of history, which is like hash this thing, like record this thing in like cryptographic time. And it's super boring, right? This is like trying to like implement copyright law in software. But I think the implications of this are really cool because of this flattening of like access, right? Like anybody can do this and anybody can start kind of plugging into the sophisticated financial networks that are going to like kind of monetize it. To me, that's important because like as like artists, I feel like artists and entrepreneurs are fairly similar, right? You take a lot of risk by spending your time on something, usually a vision that is ludicrous to most people until you're proven right. And then like you get to like earn your rewards, and it's just like that hustle is hard, right? Like and like usually it doesn't like actually bear any fruit. So equalizing and removing the middleman, I think, is just a way to like enable more artists to succeed, more entrepreneurs as well. I like,
and I think the analogy could even go further than that, right? In most areas of art or like in music, for example, like there's a lot of resource expenditure that goes into developing art too, right? Like historically, fine artists had like their patron that would support them, right, or whatever. Then later up and coming artists often were supported by like galleries and curators where implicitly their investment in resources was netting them like a cut of any sales that happened in the future, right, if it gets sold via their gallery. In music, we have the label structure where labels are effectively investing in developing artists to like recoup. So yeah, I think it's actually kind of, it almost to some extent like what we all do in tech, like it's just borrowing from what's been done in art forever. It's just like more transparently and directly monetizable typically. And I mean, depending on your perspective, higher or lower risk, but yeah.
Are you guys with meme? Do you see it as like a technology, an app store, a platform, or all of the above?
Yeah, I mean the tech is probably pretty easy to reproduce, right? It's all open source contracts that you can go grab. I think so much of it is, as we're talking about, the community, the meme, the brand, right? But in terms of like the roadmap and what I see us kind of evolving into, it is this app store or this place for discovery of digital art, and not just the art itself, but the creator. So we're kind of getting into like more social aspects of connecting and engaging an audience with an artist or creator. So there's a lot of thought around the app store and the distribution side of it, and how do we promote certain artists over another. Right now we have this cadence of every Monday dropping a new artist, but eventually that doesn't scale, and at least our plan is to onboard many more. So it's just figuring out, it's the early days, but it's figuring out, okay, why do we promote this one over that one? We have to make it clear because people are lining up to give us money to get their brand on the platform as well. So it's like, okay, we have to signify that this is more of like a featured or a sponsored campaign, so to speak. So we're dealing with some of that stuff right now, and it's exciting because there are so many different directions this project can go, and it's really just finding one or two that we can just focus on and execute and provide a lot of value to the ecosystem at large. So yeah, we're right in the middle of figuring this out, and it seems to be going in the direction of connecting a digital artist, a creator, a brand with their fans.
Are you guys thinking about like
Jordan, do you see there being like? Oh, go ahead.
Roneil, please go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, like, do you see there potentially being like kind of these almost like curator groups or networks forming to start to, like, you know, there's only so long that you can be like, every Monday we're gonna put out, like, at some point will it be sort of like these different sort of subgroups form that start to curate work? And yeah, I'm curious how you all are thinking about that, or sort of scaling out that side, because we've been thinking a lot about it too, and haven't formed, don't have like super well formed thoughts there yet, but I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, it goes back to like just like creating on the blockchain in general. Right now, certain things are very centralized. We all hope that more and more become decentralized down the road. But yeah, right now it's almost like art curator is one of the hats that I wear, or the small team that we've got that we act as. And of course, art is subjective, and what I find interesting, you may not, and that's kind of the beauty of it. Mm-hmm. But when we are doing this like limited run one at a time, why are we launching this guy, and why are we waiting for this guy? A lot of it will come down to that, and I think we're starting to get into, and we do things like this just like indirectly, or off chain, where we pull the community. Okay, who do you want to see next? We do things like that, and in our kind of permission group, we call the Citadel, mostly as a meme. We put up for poll, which artist should come next, and we're in this space now of really prioritizing. This guy's meme worthy, or this guy's not meme worthy. It'll be great to have more of a platform that's turnkey, that allow creators to kind of come in and submit on their own, and then let the market decide. I'm looking forward to that day. In the meantime, we can do interesting things like gamify it a little bit, make it part of the staking experience, where let's say you've got 3 artists and you can see a history of their work, and then the one who gets the most meme staked in their pool, they become the featured artist of the day the next week, or whatever. So we're starting to kind of scratch the surface there and figure out how can we get the community even more involved on the editorial side. Yeah, I would be interested in picking your brain and hearing what you guys are thinking about it.
Yeah, I think so far we've really just been observing emergent behavior within Audius, which is this like network of playlists has started to form, and folks are following those playlists to kind of like be part of different kind of types of music or things like this. Like there's a Atlanta hip hop playlist that someone in that community has been curating for a while that's done really well. And there are a number of others. Like there's the EDM production subreddit curates a playlist of like all of their users, whatever they're producing there, so they can all follow each other. I think it's while this isn't enabled in any formal way, like in the Audius like product or protocol, this playlisting kind of feature, I guess we like stumbled upon some emergent behavior that like we didn't anticipate, but has been really interesting to kind of watch evolve. And yeah, I'm curious to kind of see, I see a lot of parallels between kind of how you're thinking about this and how I've heard about like, I'm big fans of both like Zorai and Foundation. I think they're kind of, they're doing really interesting stuff. And the question for all of us is like, how do we scale curation of culture effectively, right? And either do you like begin to silo things in the way that is naturally happening on Audius, which is where like different little groups are forming around playlists and things like this, or do you, is scarcity of the curation space almost more a feature than an issue, right? I think that's a valid question, right? Like maybe there's a world where they're like having a fixed number of drops just makes like the ability to be one of those dropped more and more and more and more valuable over time. It's almost like the Veblen good kind of like effect, right? That it gets really interesting. We've always at Audius, I think with the product, tried to take the stance that, like our company should not be in playing a role of like curating, being like the kind of sole curator of content. But I think the natural emergent property without some like tentpole in the middle is really this siloing or fracturing of community, which I think has trade-offs. And so far for us, I think we've seen those as like good emergent properties. But it is, I think you just have to be like cognizant of like what are the trade-offs of any given approach, and kind of almost we see it as a kind of we need to as a community around Audius make sure that there is still like cross-pollination happening between these groups, right? Because I think that's where things do get that is an important aspect of all this, right? But yeah. So I don't know, maybe we'll start to see like the like culture DAOs form of tomorrow, right? The like curator DAOs of different groups of, just basically creating culture in a way, right? That's kind of the way it's created in the real world, is when like the kind of taste-making groups decide that they like a given thing or whatever. Sometimes it doesn't work, but oftentimes that is the thing that helps like boost something that's niche into a more mainstream kind of view.
That is like, to me, like one of the like kind of mind-boggling transformative things about the space. It's like not just like, how do you even like tell somebody that there's a possibility for like culture to be implemented with this like software cryptography stack, right? It's absurd, right? Like, but it is like all of these pieces seem like we're moving towards like the metaverse, right? Do you guys think about like this as being like components of the metaverse? Like I believe that like these protocols and implementations are all going to kind of merge into this like global kind of experience versus like somebody building Fortnite and we all play it.
I agree with that take for what it's worth. Like I think that it is at some point we will start to see I think just kind of what is the next platform that we all kind of go to, right? We've been stuck on mobile for like 12 years, right? And eventually something will come that creates the opportunity to rethink all the stuff that we've been taking for granted, right? Maybe that's AR, VR. Maybe that's something else. I have no idea. I think whatever it is, it's far enough away that like none of us, or at least I have like zero clarity on what it might be. But like, I feel like you almost have to like reset with like a new platform to have an opportunity to like kind of start you know, to almost like rethink a lot of the things that, you know, we just have to take for granted in the current like, you know, mobile web paradigm.
I think like I believe the next platform is just the, you know, the elliptical curve space. Like it's literally like it doesn't matter if it's mobile, web, internet, Solana, Ethereum, some layer 2, right? What we're communicating with is like these elliptical curves, and there's some platforms that define scarcity for certain things, right? And some maybe like data storage like Arweave, some maybe like high performance, you know, communication over scarcity, right? Like Solana, right? Like, but I think the key part here is like the humans getting cryptographic keys and understanding that they have them and that they can basically communicate with each other. That to me is like, I think the next platform.
Well, I do think what was interesting with mobile, right, was that our phone numbers all became like a quite an important identifier, right, in a way that like they were not before, right? Everything from like there's so many mobile networks that were able to bootstrap themselves off of that identity. I do think like a new sort of user interaction experience paradigm emerging like at the level of something like mobile is really the opportunity for like people to rethink their mental models around a lot of other things that might be unrelated to like the fact that now it's normal for you to like log into Uber, for example, by putting in your phone number. They send you a text message and then you put in a code to like the Uber app. Like the phone number literally is your like source of identity. Now that comes with a lot of issues. Like carriers were not designed to be like custodians of identity, right? As we often see in our space. But I think it is, I do actually think that like a new sort of user experience paradigm would really be catalyzing for our community, even though that like, you know, it's not like the user experience paradigm is like I am managing keys and sitting on keys, but like if someone gets used to using a new thing with like a different way of thinking about identity, I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we've been like, if you think about like the nature of identity, just generally, it's just like everything about identity in the world today is like, I mean, it's permission, but it's like, oh, I went to google.com or Yahoo or pick a website, and like they grant me some identity local to their system. And like that was very convenient for like managing a database or whatever back in the 90s when all this stuff started to take off. But like your identity is you, like, and so like you don't generate your own identity, like you get the DNA from your parents, but like the next like closest digital representation of that would be like I make up a cryptographic key and like that's my identity. And so as I just think about like first order correctness of like how do you address the problem, putting identity in the form of cryptography feels like very profound.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what Tortoise is doing there, I think, to kind of like bridge that gap a little bit from a user experience perspective, at least. Because I think right now, like I'm not, I think for like, you know, we see this a lot with our users of Audius, for example, like people forget their passwords a lot. And if they forgot their password and put in an incorrect email, because like we do this flow where like when you sign up for Audius, like there's basically an email with like a seed and a link that lets you recover your account goes out to the user. If you had like a bunk email and that, you know, email address that you put in, so you don't get the recovery email and you forget your password, there's actually not like we're not capable of recovering a user's account, right? Like there's actually like nothing our company can do to like fix that, right? Because we don't custody these keys. So like users have a really hard time with that. This is like such a common issue for us, right? Because people are used to password resets. Like we get emails, you know, multiple emails a day being like, hey, can you help me reset my password? And we're like, I mean, sorry, you know, and fortunately, like most of them, you know, have that recovery email and they can do okay, right? But like if they also don't have the email, then, you know, people don't have like I guess people haven't wrapped their head around the fact that like we as companies building in this space don't control the things we build, right? Like once they're out in the world, it's and in existing, like the only way actually for like modifications to happen at the level of like, we're gonna repoint so and so's Audius account to like be controlled by a different wallet, that would actually have to go through like a community governance vote, right? It's not like something that is realistically like, they could try to go make a case for it if they wanted to, but like I think there's just so much kind of re-education required, and it's something we as a space need to like figure out how to do better with. I think solutions like Taurus are like a really great step in that, but it's still like really hard for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I agree with all that, and I think having built products that required KYC, it's always tough to do it. It kind of fights against your crypto ethos, but it's such an important thing. Like at the stage that we're at now, just think about a few years and decades. You mentioned the metaverse. Imagine being in a virtual space. How do you know that person that you're interacting with is who they say they are? These person-to-person experiences are going to get deeper and deeper, right? So I think it's really important that we figure some of this stuff out now. I mean, just imagine when deepfake gets even better, the tech that powers these deepfake videos gets even better. It's going to be something that I think might actually be the catalyst for a lot of these experiences, right? And there are some cool projects in space building on that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that the problems that we solve now will actually like prevent a lot of the bad effects from like this open, easy to spoof web that we live in today. Like because we have to, right? Like that's the only way this stuff will work, right? So I guess our time is up, man. These panels always want to run late because the conversation is so good. So like, thank you guys for joining, and like I'm super excited to like be working in the space and building like really cool shit. Like I mean that's always been like the most fun about it.
Yeah, before we close it out, we have a few couple questions from the audience. I'm just gonna pull like the top 3 and throw them up here, and I'll let a few folks take a stab at it before we jump off. We have a couple of really good ones. This already got touched on a little bit, but let's dig into this a little bit more. The correlation between NFTs and physical collectibles, and kind of what the future looks like for that. I don't know if Jordan, Roneil, either of you have opinion on that?
I think it's really cool. I think that's going to be coming sooner than we think. We're already experimenting with NFTs that we've already created, representing access to certain physical goods. So if I own XYZ NFT, I can then purchase the shirt, where anyone without the NFT wouldn't be able to purchase the t-shirt. So obviously a ways to go before it like actually represents real world stuff. But with regards to real estate and things like that, it all just like we're kind of waiting for what happens on the other side. Like how do you actually, and it's all going to have to be off chain, at least at the start, where how does the bank know that this NFT represents ownership in that house? So there's a lot of things that have to happen, I think.
Yeah,
Cool.
I agree with that. I think it's been cool to see what Zora has done there with some of like RAC's tape. I don't know if you all saw that, but it was like you were purchasing an NFT that you can like exchange for a tape. I mean, actually, I guess Uniswap's like socks were maybe the first version of this, where there was like this sort of like tradable right to get socks in the future, but like if you turn in the token to get the socks, the token goes away, right? So I think there have been interesting ways that this has like gotten bridged, but it obviously requires like some significant degree of centralization to make work, right? So yeah.
Cool. I think this is another gun that we've seen pop up a few times.
Is there an item that you guys want to see an NFT of? Like, what would like blow your mind? For me, it would be like a Black Lotus Magic cards.
Can I get a season 1, like a rookie card, a Michael Jordan rookie card?
Yeah, my Dodgers just won the World Series, and the meme is that it's just a hunk of metal. The trophy's just a hunk of metal, even though it takes 30 grand to make it or whatever. But it just kind of got me thinking, like, it represents something, right? It represents all the hard work that goes into winning the World Series. It's just an item, then that essentially could be referenced or put into an NFT.
We've seen this pop up a few times as well. Simplifying what NFTs are for a more general audience, and I think this is an important question because as we want to expand this out to folks that are not specifically in the blockchain space, what's the simplest way that you use to explain NFTs?
I mean, I'm happy to take that. I guess like we get a lot of questions from artists about it, like especially after seeing what RAC did and what Blau has done as well. So you know, I think there's a lot of excitement about like that means of kind of being able to monetize work. So the way we've tried to explain it to artists at least is it's kind of like a you can think of it as like a commemoration of a kind of, you know, like ownership in quotes of like the attached content. That ownership doesn't come with any extended rights or anything else, but it is almost meant to be almost like a memento or like a commemoration of one's kind of, you know, I guess artist endorsed ownership of the content. It's almost like if you know, when signed prints of art are more valuable than not signed prints of art. Like the fact that the artist has endorsed your ownership of it is what makes it valuable, not, you know, the digital file itself that backs the thing. It's almost like a transfer of like culture from one person to another.
That's pretty cool.
Transfer of culture from one person to another. I like that statement.
Yeah.
I'll tweet that afterwards.
Yeah,
Be
for sure.
A good soundbite.
Man, that was a good one. Let's end it one more. I think Jordan, this one's specifically for you. Raj wanted to hear more about the rug pull experiment with the Defiant.
I honestly, what time is it? There's supposed to be an announcement today, I believe, with the Defiant video, so I don't want to spoil everything. But in the past week or 10 days, there's kind of been this underground community that have pieced together all these clues. So in the last Defiant video, there was a QR code that you scan, and only several dozen people scan this code. And that led you to another kind of Telegram group. So I don't want to spoil all the fun. There's a lot to kind of be announced today within the next couple of days at least. So I would check and see. Check the Defiant, watch the last video, watch the next video, and it's a really exciting project between the Defiant and Robin and Supermassive and the meme team.
Cool, and we'll drop the links for the videos in the chat channel in a moment. And I think that covered most of them. Nothing else here really stands out. So we're over time per usual. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Roneil. Thanks, Tully. This was awesome. And for everyone who didn't get a chance to watch the entire video, everything gets recorded and gets uploaded to the Solana YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for that in the next 24 to 48 hours to get a recap of the entire panel. And we have two other chats today. We have a fireside with Tarun, who is the founder and CEO of Gauntlet, in 2 hours. And then we have a panel about blockchain interoperability with Anatoly, Sam, and James Presswich at 3 p.m. PT, so in 5 hours. So thank you to everyone who attends these. I see a lot of familiar faces that are continually show up, and we appreciate it. And so thanks everyone, and thank you to the panelists. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Take care.